there isn't a means of guaranteeing how the attempt to construct public opinion manifests within the public. And it's that unknown, right? It's that unknown that usually undermines the, if it's sort of illicit, right? That usually undermines, if there is an illicit intent to posit political will, it's that unknown that undermines it, right? Why? Because there are so many, there's such a divergence within the community that you can't really properly talk about an assessment of national community as all being equal. There are different degrees of education, there's different degrees of accessibility, there's different degrees of opportunity, so that when we talk about equality, what is it that we're really talking about, right? And it's not for me to answer, it's someone from Capitol Hill needs to come down and have a discussion, right, on this is what it means to be equal. And to be honest with you, I think it would be fair. It would be a fair discussion to have now. I'm not gonna politicize my analysis, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting to talk about what it means to be equal, because it isn't what you think, right? So I think this has to do with fairness, but I'm not going to get into that because it would be politicized, and I'm not trying to do that. All right, last bullet point. In democracy, the guiding principle is not that of excellence or virtue, but rather the wish and whims of the citizens. I stop right there, right? Because the idea, Nietzsche picks up on this. This is an idea from antiquity, obviously, and it's a pervasive idea. The idea of excellence, right? The idea of excellence from Aristotle and Plato comes even earlier from, as we've seen in my Nietzsche lecture series, from the Hellenistic sophists, which inform Plato and Aristotle, which inform Al-Farabi. So it really has its roots in sort of Hellenistic sophism. And the idea of excellence, which obviously Nietzsche takes to the ultimate, right? Both in the Apollonian and Dionysian, but I don't want to jump ahead because I'm not even anywhere near that in my lecture series, right? And I don't want to give away the goods. But the Apollonian being the knowledge base, the Dionysian being the sort of sensual, physical, physiological base, and the idea is a balance. It's not a mutually exclusive distinction between Apollonian and Dionysian, it's a conflation of the two. That might be a little bit deeper for people who don't know that bit. And I feel like I'm really getting too deep here because it's multiple things I'm pulling from. The point is, as he says, it's not about excellence. The argument is it should be about excellence. And there's nothing that pisses me off more in this world than an inability to recognize greatness. I hate that. Why work? Why live? If there isn't an inability to recognize greatness, if there's an inability to recognize work, if there's an inability to recognize individuals who give everything that they have to a greater cause, and they work and they produce not just quantity but quality. And I'm not talking about myself, right? There's a particular thing that's happening with a friend that I know, and so that is sort of pissing me off. How she's being sort of, her excellence and her greatness is being undermined, being rejected by an institution that should recognize her excellence and greatness. Then why not just pick up guns and kill people? Because there's nothing else to live for. If there is no excellence and there is no greatness and there isn't going to be a recognition of excellence and greatness, kill people. You know, there's nothing else to do. Because in the end, you know, if you really want to... I probably should have said that, but I mean, you know, it's just like, you know, what else is there to do? What else is there to do? If people aren't going to see that you are trying to take care of a family, that you are trying to contribute to your nation, that you are trying to make the world a better place, if that has no value, if there's no value attributed to that, then what else then to be a tyrant? And this is how we get the tyrannical regime. This is how we get the summum malum, not the summum bonum, the greatest evil. Right? We get that because there is a refusal to recognize excellence. There's a refusal to recognize greatness. And I'm not going to go off into that because it's all Nietzschean and I've already done a video on that. It's the idea of humility and subservience and docility and all of that. Right? Rather than pride and well, not hubris, but pride and know-how and a lack and a refusal to bow and to be humble. Right? So, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. The rulers are instruments for satisfaction, right? The rulers are instruments for satisfaction, and this, you know, this obviously informs a Millsian utilitarian ethic, right? It is better to be a human, rational, dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. The appeal really, so that you can take a utilitarian application to Al-Farabi and it would translate as well, right? The idea, the first part in a Millesian account of the greatest happiness principle, is that it is better to be a human dissatisfied. Why? Because you have type 1 education from a type 1 educator, right? Type 1 educator gave you reason, taught you how to think, transformed your life. You now become this new person, and despite the fact that you are dissatisfied, you know you have your mental faculties, you can be reasoned with, and you can reason. So it's better to be a type 1 educator or be type 1 educated and be upset because I'm now a nihilist and everything that I see falls into the wasteland. At least I have my knowledge. At least I know why I'm dissatisfied. Than to be a pig satisfied. Than to be a brute who really doesn't have an understanding of the greater complexities of life, really, on a metaphysical sense. This goes into my shamanism video, right? And therefore these people can only be reasoned with, they can't be reasoned with, there's only compulsion and force. As I said in a video response to some moron in the universe, it was like, dude, don't be a bully. Don't be a bully. Why be a brute? Right? Why be a brute? Because if you're a brute, you got to recognize that you are never going to be the most powerful brute. There's always someone meaner and badder than you. There's always someone more grotesque and who will do more debased things from you. And just like institutions and powerful people co-opt academics so that academics can weaponize their minds, academics use their minds to influence and co-opt others to do the dirty work for them. That's the whole point. The last person you want to go to war with is someone who has the power of rational deliberation, because that power of rational deliberation is used to influence other people to do the dirty work. You know? I mean, come on. The universe. Oh, it's not my fault. It's the universe. They've made me into this. I was going to do something else with my life, but the universe forced me to do this. Those bastards. But I'm having a great time. So people have a right to do anything detestable and contrary to reason, obviously. Taking its bearings from what people are and not what they may become, democracy is insensitive to what is noble and rational. The idea is, if we talk about the political establishment as governing this disparate group of populations who have, in some senses, antithetical needs and drives, who govern themselves as being equal, so that one of the main critiques in a contemporary setting of democracy is the perception of equality. There isn't an equality, there is an inequality. But insofar as there is an inequality, I wouldn't sort of degrade that discourse to undermine the relevancy of democracy. I would just be honest and say, no, there isn't equality, there is inequality, but where there is inequality, the way that you reconcile inequality, or mitigate inequality, is through fairness. And this is the part that I didn't want to politicize, so I'm not going to discuss it, and I'll let the powers that be connect the dots themselves. And knowing me, there's two ways to connect the dots. That won't make sense to 99% of the people, but hopefully it will to some. It makes sense to me. So the idea is, no, listen, the idea of equality and democracy is primarily a problem. Why is this a problem? It isn't really a problem for us in the States, per se, because our democracy is established. It becomes a problem in concepts like democratic peace theory. It becomes a problem when we talk about the democratization of the globe, the world. None of this is mine. All of this is sort of contemporary political discourse. If we talk about the democratization of the world as a means of facilitating democratic peace theory, then we need to recognize that when we talk about the democratization of the world, we need to make sure that receptive communities recognize that we're not going to be bringing you equality. We, whoever we are, we're not bringing you equality. The biggest problem with contemporary political ideology, bar none, is the fact that when we talk about democratization, it's very important, and I hope this is clear, because this is the deepest point. Democratization for individuals who will be governed by this new political regime is interpreted as equality. And when this new political regime, who facilitates democratic peace theory, comes to power, the people who are now being governed via globalized democratization say, wait a second, there's still inequality here. It would be more effective a model, political model, if people knew that by democracy we do not mean equality. There will be inequality because it's a substrate of human existence. However, we are going to institute mechanisms, political mechanisms of fairness to mitigate inequality. At least the people would be more informed. And, I would argue, at least the prospect of globalized democratization would be facilitated by a more honest discourse, because those who are being governed by this new emerging globalized democratization would have a better understanding of what it means to be democratic, right? So I think the grave disservice to, and I'm a fan of democracy, obviously, the grave disservice to democracy is the assumption of equality. And I personally, which I know goes against the grain, I renounce this notion. I categorically renounce the idea of equality, right? And I do so based on a recognition of the facts, biological facts. I'm a Nietzschean of inequality, but I mitigate that with opportunity, accessibility, fairness, blah, blah, blah. In terms of freedom, last point, then I'm done. In terms of freedom, the idea is we can talk about freedom, but freedom comes at a price. Freedom comes at the price of political obligation. And this is precisely where, I'm going to end on this because I don't want to get too deep, and now I guess it's already ridiculously deep, but at this point, you know, political obligation manifests in two forms, right? Government and governance. And I'm not going to say much more than that, right? The idea of political government, M-E-N-T, the structure, political architecture, in terms of democracy, global democracy in the contemporary 21st setting, can only manifest with people like Hillary Clinton. Without someone like her, none of this works. You need a liaison to facilitate, right? You need a liaison to facilitate the potential globalization of democracy. Which isn't to say it's democracy versus X or Y or blah, 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 and I already know, I mean, I'm like, am I really going to upload this video? I'm just the messenger, right? But I mean, I do, you know, personally, right? There is a sense in which we can facilitate a global democratic governance, not government, a global democratic governance in terms of the globalization of democracy, the globalization of democratization. But we need our diplomatic representatives to go out and talk to people and bring that information back. I don't think this is a bad thing, personally. I don't see how it would be a bad thing. Hey, if you don't like democracy, at least we've been talking with you and we know why you guys like it because of some culturally relativistic, nuanced, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. To do 102 countries in her tenure is insane. And she's probably higher than that now. So it's like, shout out to her. She's bringing all of this knowledge back to be like, hey, they like this, they don't like that. They like this, they don't like that. I would say, is my 2 cents, make sure you don't talk about this, right? Get rid of this. This is a problem. The idea of equality is ridiculous, right? Get rid of that, to be honest. And that honesty, I think, would facilitate and buttress. This is a very, this is an insane lecture to actually give publicly, but, you know, I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'll just keep going down the rabbit hole. So, with that, I want to thank you for watching my videos. Sorry for the abrupt end. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Have a good day.